This is the 17th Sunday after Pentecost. The epistle is taken from St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4. Brethren, I, a prisoner in the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation in which you are called, with all humility and mildness, with patience, supporting one another in charity, careful to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. One body and one Spirit, as you are called in one hope of your calling. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. One God, Father of all, who is above all and through all and in us all, who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. The Holy Gospel. Taken from St. Matthew chapter 22. At that time the Pharisees came to Jesus, and one of them, a doctor of the law, asked him, tempting him, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said to him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, and with thy whole soul, and with thy whole mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like to this, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments dependeth the whole law and the prophets. And the Pharisees, being gathered together, Jesus asked them, saying, What think you of Christ? Whose son is he? They say to him, David's. He saith to them, How then doth David in spirit call him Lord, saying, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit on my right hand, until I make thy enemies thy footstool. If David then called him Lord, how is he his son? And no man was able to answer him a word, neither durst any man from that day forth ask him any more questions. Thus are the words of the sacred Scripture. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, Amen. Please pray for the men that will be on the retreat this week. The ladies' retreat last week, we had 18 ladies. This week, I think we're expecting quite a few more men. So pray for them all. Pray also for the seminarians who will also be on retreat this week. This is the retreat that begins the seminary year. So for the seminarians, this is their pre-studies retreat. So pray for all of them. Pray for the new seminarians who are coming and are here already. And pray for the old ones to persevere. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Today is October 1st. We are in the midst of some great feasts of the angels. On September 29th, we had the great feast of St. Michael the Archangel. And then tomorrow is the feast of the guardian angels. And then later in October, October 24th, is the feast of St. Raphael the Archangel. And then in March, right before the Annunciation of the Virgin Mary, is the great feast of St. Gabriel. So, especially here at this time, we have a lot of the feasts of the angels. The angels are pure spirits. They are created by God in three instances. The first instance was their creation. Second instance was their choice. Third instance was the reward. The angels were created in the state of grace. Many people think the angels were created in the beatific vision, in heaven seeing God. But that's not true. The angels, if they were created in the vision of the Blessed Trinity, they could never turn from God. But God gave them a free will, just like we all have a free will. But the angelic intellect is far superior, far, far mountains miles and miles superior to the human peanut brain. We have to learn through our senses. We have to learn by trial and error. We got to learn the chess game by winning and losing, losing and winning. We got to learn new moves. We got to learn by being beat and defeated. That's how we get better. But with the angels, once they know something by the infused species that God infuses into their mind, once they know chess game, for example, they know every single thing about the chess game. Every possible move, every possible win, every possible loss. So the intelligence of the angels is mountains, miles above us. And that's why God dealt with the angels far different than the way he dealt with mankind. And the angels, as soon as they were created, they made their choice. And some of them said they bowed down to the fact that one day God would become man. And man is far lower than angels. The difference between a man and a little earthworm is pretty far. But the difference between a man and an angel is much, much farther. And that's why once the angels made their choice and they saw that God would become a man someday, and which to us would be like becoming an earthworm, the comparison, Lucifer rose up and said, I will not serve. I will not bow down before a God who becomes clay, a God who takes on hands and feet like those low-class humans. Lucifer led the rebellion, and there was a great battle as described in the Apocalypse in heaven. The battle didn't last long because the angels are extremely powerful. And St. Michael rose up with his sword, rose up with the defense of the rights of God against the first naturalist, against the first Freemason called Lucifer. The exaltation of human dignity, and in his case, angelic dignity, against God. And really, when you study the revolution since the Protestant Revolution and the Communist Revolution and the revolution within the Church of Modernism, it basically is that. I will not serve. I will not submit to God's law. I will not submit to Jesus Christ as king over our politics, over our economics, over our whole social order. I will not submit my will and my body and my whole being to God's law. I will not serve. And this attitude is deadly. And it's behind every time we sin, it's there. Every time we sin, even venial sins, it's there in us. We have it in us, this rebellion, this disorder, this selfishness, this exaltation of myself above God's law. And this is why the battle in heaven didn't last too long, but Lucifer seduced a third of the angels to follow him. And those devils were cast out from heaven in the great battle by St. Michael. And St. Michael is invoked. His name is invoked in the exorcisms of a place, the exorcisms of a person. The devil is driven out sometimes just by mentioning the name of St. Michael. When we were in the seminary in Winona, back in the days, when the Society of St. Pius X held the Catholic position and resisted modernism and stood up to modernist Rome, destroying the church, and held the line of Archbishop Lefebvre before 2012. Father, there was a girl who had sold her soul to the devil for a 12-speed bike. Now this sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But there are now websites, so I'm told. There are websites kids can go on, anybody can go on, where they sell their soul to the devil for some gain. And this is how perverse we've become. We have become lower than animals. And this is why you need censorship. This is why the Catholic Church has always said freedom of the press comes straight out of hell. Because what it means is freedom of pornography, freedom of Satanism, freedom of all immorality. And the church has always condemned this, to protect the flock from the wolves. So St. Michael is invoked. And in the case of this girl that was possessed by the devil, she sold her soul, and she was possessed. And her parents, who were not Catholic, didn't know what to do with her. They brought her to their minister, Protestant minister. He couldn't do anything. He said, send her to a psychiatrist. So they put her on drugs, and she was on drugs, and she became like a vegetable, drooling, and she just became useless. So they said, this can't be a solution. So they turned to a novice ordo priest. He came jogging by in his Nike sneakers and shorts, and he said, just send her to a psychiatrist. Possession and the devil, that's all things of the Middle Ages. So they were kind of helpless. They were kind of turning what to do. And then one of the co-workers of the mother said, why don't you go to this traditional Catholic priest up on the hill in Winona? And these priests are traditional priests. They're real priests. You'll call them. So they did. They contacted the seminary, and Father Peter Scott, who was one of our professors at the time, Father Peter Scott used to be the great bulldog to defend the Catholic faith. He used to stand up to all these modernist bishops. And now Father Peter Scott, pray for him. He should also be with the resistance. He should not be going along with this compromise of the faith. And it's not just a question of, oh, the agreement's not signed yet. The agreement was signed with the doctrinal declaration. Once you change the faith, you're finished. This is why we have to fight. It's too late to wait for some signature. That signature was signed on the doctrinal declaration. So pray for Father Peter Scott to return to being a bulldog instead of a little mouse. Anyway, in his bulldog days, he went. And this bulldog went to face the devil. And this 12-year-old girl, he went to the house, and normally, of course, you have to question, you have to see if it's a real case of possession. Because sometimes there is true mental disease or just someone is crazy, period. So he first sprinkled the house with holy water, as every priest does when he comes to bring the sacraments. And he sprinkled her, and she just went off in a frenzy. She just started growling and throwing her arms around. There were 5 big guys, big men that had to hold this girl down. A 12-year-old girl. Because the devil that gives those possessed superhuman strength. So Father Peter Scott, by this he knew most likely she's probably possessed. So he forced her to kiss the crucifix. And they were holding her down, and she was spitting at it. She was growling the devil in her. And he forced her. And she shouted, no, no, no. And he forced her to her lips. And then Father took the Roman ritual, the traditional Catholic ritual for expelling the devil. Now Pope John Paul II, and in the spirit of Vatican II, which has to change everything and overturn everything of our Catholic faith, they even had the audacity to change the rite of exorcism. And the exorcist priests, such as Father Amorth, who died last year, he said they had to go to the Holy Father, the Pope. They had to go to Pope John Paul II and say, Holy Father, this new rite of exorcism is not working. The devils just mock us. The devils just laugh at us because it's a novice ordo exorcism. What do you expect? So stay away from novice ordo mass. Stay away from novice ordo holy water. The devil just tickles them. But the real holy water is exercise. The real holy water burns the devil out. He hates holy water. That's why St. Teresa of Avila said one of the greatest weapons against the devil that God gave us is something very simple, holy water. He hates it. When you're tempted by the devil, take some and make the sign of the cross. Sprinkle your rooms with it. Have it in your home. Holy water should be in every home. So Father took the ritual, the traditional one, and it begins, O gloriosissime Princeps Michael Archangel. It invokes St. Michael. And as soon as Father Scott began the prayer, it began with the name of St. Michael. And as soon as he said the name of St. Michael, the devil left her. So it must have been only one devil. Because if there's legions of devils, it takes months and months to drive them all out. So this one was probably just one devil or two. But they all fled at the name of St. Michael. So Father finished the prayer, and the girl came back to normal. And the parents were very grateful, and they lived happily ever after. So pray for Father Scott, who has dealt with the devil. In one of the exorcisms in Austria, the devil said to the priest, "I will get you to say the new Mass." That shows you whose side the devils are when it comes to the Latin Mass, the true Catholic Mass, the Tridentine Mass, or the new Mass. Clearly the new Mass comes out of hell, written by a Freemason with the help of 6 Protestant ministers. And it does not give grace, it strangles grace. It makes a mockery of the sacrifice of the Mass, makes a mockery of Christ's kingship, of his priesthood, and his holy sacrifice. And that's why, even if it's valid, you just stay away. And Archbishop Lefebvre used to say that very clearly. You can read it in the most recent Recusant, one of his conferences, basically condemning the new Mass. You don't go to it. And he also says, stay away from Sedevacantis Masses. That is, those who don't pray for the Pope in their Mass by name. We pray for Pope Francis every Mass. Is he a good Pope? No. Is he taking souls to hell? Yes. Is he a bad Pope? Yes. But is he the Pope? Yes. Do we pray for him, for his conversion? Yes. We pray that he wakes up and consecrates Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But this Pope is bad, but he has, as loyal sons of the Pope, we have a duty to stand up to him and say, Holy Father, you are betraying your keys that Christ gave you. You are leading souls to hell. You're going against all of tradition. And he just says, well, I'm just fulfilling Vatican II. And he's right. He is. That's why Vatican II and the new Mass will someday be condemned officially. And it already has been condemned by all the previous popes who condemned all the heresies in Vatican II. So, we pray for the Pope, of course. And St. Michael, he's invoked in many other prayers, and he's a great friend of ours. So you want to have a great devotion to St. Michael. And St. Michael will also be the one at our death, at our judgment, to stand there with the scales. St. Michael's often pictured with the scales. And on the scales will be all our good works, and on the other side, the bad works, omissions, any sins, and pretty scary thought where that balance is going to fall, isn't it? But let me give you a little secret that comes from St. Louis de Montfort and many saints. Most of us, the scale's going to go the dark side. We're poor, fallen human creatures. We try our best and we fall. We try, we fall. We try, we fall. And most of us, that scale's not going to look too favorable. And then the devils are going to appear at our judgment and they're going to say, but he did this, he did that. They have everything wrong we did already listed. They got it all down. And they know the day, the hour, the place. And we're going to be like, how did he remember this? I don't remember that. The devil will remember everything because he is vicious. He wants each one of us burning in hell. And let's face the fact, out of the big room like this, there's going to be at least 5 to 10 souls who will be in hell, most likely. That goes for me as well. We've got to fear the fires of hell, and we must love God. But if you look at the statistics and the proportions, that means about 7 to 10 out of this room will be burning in hell forever. Scary thought. Scary thought. And it better wake all of us up. Me too. So, at the death, St. Michael holds the scales. Well, here's the little secret. Say the Rosary every day. Say the Rosary every day. Don't underestimate the power of that weapon. That weapon is given by heaven. It was given by the Virgin Mary to St. Dominic. There are 15 mysteries of that rosary, not 20, the Illuminist hoax. Granted, the mysteries are from Scripture, good, but they're not what Our Lady gave. Stay with the traditional 15 mysteries of the rosary. And that rosary is powerful. So many promises given to it. The grace of a happy death. The grace of dying in the state of grace. The grace of having the signal favor and protection of the Virgin Mary. And everything. The rosary is so powerful that, in fact, I could even say this without any qualm of breaking anything against the church teaching, because it's said by many saints that if you pray the rosary and have devotion to Mary, that's a sign you're probably going to go to heaven. And if you don't pray the rosary, rarely think of the Virgin Mary and basically treat her like a book on the shelf and let it get dusty and forgotten, that's a good sign you're already on the road to hell. So, the Virgin Mary, and you might say, well, what's the big deal about the Virgin Mary? Christ is God. He's God. We should go to Him. And Catholics start talking like Protestants sometimes. We should go just to Jesus. We don't need Mary and the saints. Well, ask our Lord. Ask Him. And He'll tell you, look, my son, there are many graces I'm not going to give you if you pray to me. Because I will only give it through my mother, through her, because I honor her. And I want to give the world graces through her, because I came to the world through her. And I want souls to come to me through her. Christ wants her honored. And that's why some prayers are just not answered when you go to the heart of Jesus. He is all love. He is our God. We adore Him. But He wants His mother honored. And that's the secret to straighten out, getting the scales to fall to the good side. Pray the rosary every day and pray it well, devoutly. And if you can, the full 3 rosaries. Do not take it lightly. We are in a massive flood of vice, of sin. And this flood is just taken in its powerful wake and in its strength and in its powerful torrent, thousands and thousands and thousands of souls to hell. How are we going to withstand this with all the temptations of the devil, of the flesh, of the world? How are we going to get to heaven in this mess? The rosary every day. And that's just the way it is. So that scale is once when your judgment comes and that scale falls to the bad side, the devils are going to be saying, He's mine, give us to Him. Give Him to us, give Him to us. He's mine, He's mine. And the devil will be growling and throwing his claws at the soul to take it to hell. But at that moment, the Virgin Mary will come. The Virgin Mary will come and she'll take the rosary, put it on the scale. These are the rosaries this one said for me, for my honor. And all those rosaries are going to tip the scale. You'll see. You'll see. So pray this powerful weapon, and it is, Padre Pio called it, the weapon. The weapon in this war of all of hell unleashed in these days of apostasy. Our Lady of La Salette said hell would almost be emptied of the devils. We're living in that day right now because they know their time is short. And they've got bishops, they've got priests, they've got thousands and millions of people in their claws. So the rosary is that great weapon. So St. Michael, stay close to him. He is the defender of the rights of God. St. Michael was the Archbishop Lefebvre, so to speak, of the heavenly battle. And Archbishop Lefebvre imitated him against the betrayal of Vatican II, stood up and said, "Who is like unto Christ the King? You have no right to change the faith." And so he kept Catholic tradition in the face of all the persecutions from modernist Rome. And make no mistake, Bishop Fillet says Rome has changed. Pope Francis is a good theologian, but he has a few flaws. And Bishop Fillet has recently signed this correction of Pope Francis. And the correction was made by 40 theologians of the Novus Ordo. It quotes Vatican II. It quotes Pope John Paul II. Why is Bishop Fillet signing this nonsense? So it's very deceptive because it looks like he's fighting against Pope Francis's errors and heresies, but he's not condemning Vatican II, which is the root cause of all this. The modernism in the very intestines of the church and this new conciliar church. So pray to St. Michael. And Pope Leo XIII, he commanded after he heard, one time at Low Mass, he heard a conversation between Christ and Satan, coming from the tabernacle, the voice of Christ. And Satan said, I will destroy your church. This happened about 1880s. I will destroy your church. And Christ said with a very gentle, firm, and manly voice, oh, you will? And the devil said in a guttered voice, yes, I will. Give me the time and the power. And our Lord said, how much time? How much power? He said, give me about 100 years and I will destroy your church. Christ said, you have the time and the power. Go ahead and try. Of course, Satan will never destroy the Catholic Church, never. It's going to last till the end of the world. But he sure has done a major destruction at Vatican II and with modernism. So that is why at the end of every Low Mass, there's the 3 Hail Marys, the Hail Holy Queen, the prayer to St. Michael, which of course was dropped by the new Mass. So love St. Michael. He's our defender. He's our protector. Have a great devotion to him. The other saint tomorrow, the guardian angels. Guardian angels are our big brothers who are appointed to us, not at your conception, because your guardian angel of your mother is the guardian angel of the little baby in the mother's womb. And the guardian angel is not given either at baptism. But the guardian angel is appointed right at birth. And the guardian angel is your friend, your defender. All the saints had a great love and devotion to their guardian angels. Some of them knew their names. And the guardian angels are with you all your life. And they work like good friends. And when they see you going towards evil, they will try to reach you. Don't go there. Don't go there. Stay away from this occasion of sin. Stay away from that bad company. Stay away from those evil websites. And the angels speak to the soul. That they always work gently. Sometimes you wish they'd use their fist, but that's not how they work. But the angels, when a soul has fallen into mortal sin, he will be the first to say, get to confession. Don't die in this state. You'll burn in hell forever. And the guardian angels are always defending us. And every one of us in this chapel right now, if we're alive right now, it's thanks to our guardian angel. He shielded you from breaking your skull when you fell off the counter as a little baby with your bottle. He protected you from a major head-on collision when you were 16, learning how to drive and passing a car and almost hit a Mack truck. He protected you when you almost drowned, swimming or jumping off cliffs. The guardian angels are always there protecting us. And you're going to have a lot of thanks to give to your guardian angel. So love your guardian angel, pray to him. Pray to him every morning and night. Speak to him as a friend. He is a soldier. He is a soldier of the armies of heaven. And he protects you. And the guardian angels used to help Padre Pio in his Mass turn the pages because his hands were bleeding and they were so painful. The guardian angels, every priest has 2 guardian angels. We need them. And just like there's guardian angels, there's also devils appointed to you. And more devils on the priests. And in the accounts of Mother Blessed Mary of Agreda, she heard once the council of the devils with Lucifer in hell, holding a big meeting in hell, how they're going to damn souls and attack them now that Christ is risen from the dead and the Catholic faith, the light of the faith will spread everywhere. How are we going to move souls and turn them away from the light of the Catholic faith? Unleash enemies on all of us. They attack us day and night. They don't rest. They don't sleep. They don't need to eat. They don't need to have a break. And the devils carry the fires of hell with them. So there is a constant war. And we don't even see it. We're like little babies in the mother's arms, and we don't realize all that's going on around us. But you will when you die. You will when you die. So some saints, like St. Catherine of Siena, were able to converse with their guardian angels at a young age. She could speak with her guardian angel. And as she grew up, she thought everybody did. She learned that, oh, not everybody does speak to their guardian angels. So some of the saints were privileged in that way. Now, later in the month, October 24th, we've got St. Raphael the Archangel, another great, powerful friend of God, one of the 7 strong armies of heaven, the 7 archangels. St. Raphael, he is the one that appeared to Tobias in the Old Testament. And he basically showed up as a young man, a young, strong man. And St. Raphael, he did not become incarnate in flesh, but he just took the vision of flesh. But that shows us how the angels and the devil have mastery over matter. They can condense gases and air to make something really appear. And that's what St. Raphael did. And so he appeared as a young man, strong and ready to travel. And he came to the house and he said, I'm heading this way. And Tobias' father said, well, if you're heading this way, can you take my son, Tobias? He has to go there to get a debt that's owed to us. So St. Raphael, sent by God, they didn't know it, but remember, Tobias was blind because he was so tired from burying the dead and defending the honor of God, because many of the Jews were apostatizing towards the New World religion at the time, and they were abandoning the true faith. So he stuck his neck out, and he could have easily been arrested and shot or chopped his head off. But he did all this good work, and he buried the dead at night with his own hands. And of course his wife, imagine you wives with your husband coming home with a dead body to keep in the basement all day long and for a couple of days until he has time to bury it. So his wife got really frustrated with this, and she screamed and she howled and she couldn't stand this. And St. Raphael said, honey, we have to do this for the love of God. Who else will bury them? It's a work of mercy to bury the dead and to take care of the poor and those who are asking us. So St. Tobias, when he sat down by the fence, he fell asleep, and when he woke up, there was a bird above the tree, above his eyes. And the birds just had a big breakfast, and they dropped their ploppings on the eyes of poor Tobias. So he was blinded from the bird droppings. So he was blinded, but that's why St. Raphael came to the door and said, okay, I'll take him. So St. Raphael, long story short, he saved Tobias from being devoured by a huge fish. St. Raphael told Tobias, take the fish by the gills, pull him on shore, burn his heart, burn his liver. And the fathers of the church will say, like St. Augustine, the heart burning is Christ's heart, burning with love on the cross for souls, which drives away the devil, which it did. And then St. Raphael is also the patron of good marriages. Now, ladies, if you want the best husband, there he is. There he is. You can't see his face, but he's far more handsome than any face in here. And yet this Jesus Christ the King dwells here. Where are his brides? Where's his wives? All you girls want to run off and get some pretty boy, and they turn out many times being useless and not even hardly half a man. If you find a good man, well, thank God. But still, in your heart, you must love him first. You must love him above your own husband and Prince Charming. You must love him first. And for the young men and our men here, our best bride is the Blessed Trinity, the Blessed Virgin Mary. So, St. Raphael is the patron of good marriages because he arranges the marriage of Tobias and this beautiful young girl, Sarah. And poor Sarah, she married 7 husbands, and by the next day they were all dead. So she was accused of, are you murdering these men? What it was they were marrying for lust. She was stunningly beautiful and everything. So Sarah would marry these men, but these men were marrying her for lust. So the devil was able to kill them the first night. So when young Tobias came to the house, the parents of Sarah introduced Sarah to Tobias, and St. Raphael, of course, was there, still as the young man. And St. Raphael encouraged them to talk and to propose. And the parents were a little hesitant, sure you want to marry again, because this Tobias is a fine young man, what if he wakes up dead? So anyway, long story short, Sarah marries Tobias, and they consecrate the first 3 nights to prayer. And God blesses their marriage, and that first night, the parents were waiting downstairs. They had breakfast for 2, but they only had the plate set for 1, thinking, well, he's probably going to die. But lo and behold, down comes Tobias and Sarah. He wasn't killed by the devils. And Tobias and Sarah lived happily ever after. So they made the trip all the way back to Father Tobias, the father. And then what happened? Tobias comes with his guest, Raphael. And the parents, the father's still blind, and Tobias and the mother of Tobias, they turn to Raphael and say, how can we thank you? You gave us so much. You protected my son. You saved his life. You got him a good wife. You did all this. How can we pay you back? And then that young man transformed into what he really is, St. Raphael the Archangel. And he said, I am one of the angels that stands before the throne of God. And he touched the eyes of Tobias Sr., and he recovered his sight miraculously. And he saw the angel. And they fell down and adored him. And St. Raphael told them that he was sent by God for this purpose. And then he blessed them as an angel can, and he vanished. So St. Raphael is the great patron of travelers, patron of good marriages, and he's the patron of medical doctors and for good health. So that's the role of St. Raphael. So all these great angels God has given us, and there's billions and billions and billions of angels. They're already gathering now. More than 50 million angels are already gathering for the Mass right now. And there's far more angels than those of the men and women of the human race. They far outnumber them. And there are big brothers and sisters. No, there's no sisters. Big brothers in heaven. There's no female angels. They're pure spirits. And the angels are massive, powerful. And there are 9 armies of angels. And this is a very important point right now, because World War I was all about making the world safe for democracy, pushing this Freemasonic idea of equality, and this whole nonsense about equality, which is false. Equality is a false. The only way we are equal is that we're all created human beings, and we're going to die and be judged. That's the only way. Everything else, you're not equal. All of you are absolutely unequal from each other. And that has to be that way. The eye is not the toe, and the toe is not the eye. Thank God, otherwise we'd be a mess. So inequality is built in by God. And in the angels, there's a massive inequality. And the highest angels are closest to God, receive the greatest gifts. and all the 9 armies that go all the way down to the lowest, which are the angels. And all the angels are powerful, but they're not all equal. Just like men are not equal. There are races that have more gifts than other races. There are gifts that men have that women don't have. There are gifts that women have that men will never have. One of them being to bear children for heaven. What a great role the woman has. And that's why the devils have attacked the woman through the Masonic lodges, to get them to wear pants, to get them to be masculine, to get them to be loose, and get her out of the home, and hate children, and not want children. And the average, even traditional girls now, oh, I don't want more than 3. But they'll have 50 dogs. So this is where we're at, dear faithful. So let's turn to the angels. Ask them the grace. Pray to them every day. Pray to them every day. And let's kneel down with them at Mass with such adoration. And remember the fallen angels also, the damned, the devils. Hell was made for the devils in the center of the earth. But since men, since the redemption and since the fall of Adam and Eve, men who fall in mortal sin and unrepentant and want to live without God and don't love Him and don't thirst for Him and don't seek Him with their minds, since they didn't want God on earth, they won't have God in hell. And it's unbelievable, the sufferings of the damned in hell. And the devil he loves it best when people don't believe in hell, because he's got them. But hell is real, and God is barely there. God is there keeping the fires going. He keeps the devils in existence and the damned in existence. But God who is beauty, there is no beauty in hell. God who is refreshment, there is no refreshment in hell. There is no Coke machine. There's no even a spring of water to get one drop. The fire burns in the bones, in the bloodstream, in the esophagus, in the teeth, in the brain. It boils. And these souls burn forever. The body does not die. It does not die. The devils can rip you up. They can tear limbs off. They can cut open your body with their claws, throw you like a glass against the wall, and you will not die. The souls of hell do not die. God keeps them in existence. And what goes through their mind? I blew my life on earth. I blew it. I could have gone to heaven so easy. I should have just prayed the Rosary every day. I made time for everything else. Why didn't I pray the Rosary every day and get to confession and straighten out my life? And they curse their life forever down there, and it doesn't end. And there's millions of souls today. Probably over 50,000 have fallen into hell. That's the real picture, folks. Wide is the road to hell, most travel thereon. And then the devils just torment them. And the remorse of conscience and the eternity of it. So it was made for the devils, but men go down there too. And most of the human race. And the devils, they are vicious. They just wreak hatred and vengeance. Since they can't attack God, they attack the damned. But as one of the saints said, if the devils want to chop your legs off, but it's not part of the punishment God has assigned, He can't do it. So even the devils in hell are restrained by the power of God from doing more damage than they would like to. And some at the very bottom of hell, of which are bishops, priests, and religious, who have betrayed the love of God, He brings them close to His heart, He wants them close to Him, and they love the world more than Him. And so if they die in mortal sin, they have a horrible spot in hell. And the devils, as you know, we know this from the saints, and St. John Bosco, and many saints who have gone down to hell and have seen devils. They take the forms, the size of this room, this chapel, in the shape of a massive earwig, of a massive maggot, of a massive spider, of a massive ape, of a massive centipede, And with eyes of hate, they just tear the damned and gnaw at them, eat their skin, gnaw at their muscles, and they just torture the damned. And this is not, fairy tale stuff that I'm giving you from the pulpit. I'm not going through the whole quotes. But these are actual descriptions of saints who have gone down and seen hell. So we don't want the company of the damned, and especially the company of the devils. And in hell, there is no moment to say, okay, let's have a break, a cigarette break, and let's talk about the good old days on earth. No way. There is no friendship, no even a calm conversation, because everybody is screaming at the pitch of their madness, because they're burning in such a frenzy. So turn to the angels. They're our big brothers to help us get to heaven. Have a great devotion to your guardian angels. And let's salute the Queen of all angels. She loves that title, the Virgin Mary, the Queen of Angels. So let's salute her today in this Mass, asking the Queen of Angels, help us, help us, help us get to heaven. And we promise we'll pray the Rosary every day. Even if it's just 5 decades at least, we'll do it every day. Let's resolve that, all of us, here and now. O Mary conceived without sin.
Pray for us and have recourse to thee.
O Mary conceived without sin.
Pray for us and have recourse to
O
thee.
Mary conceived without sin.
Pray for us and have recourse to thee.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost.